Abby. Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, depending on where you're joining us from. My name is Robin. I've been at Skim for about 8 years, and in those 8 years, I've really seen a lot of different studies in which we've looked at the choices that people have and how we can influence those choices, how we can optimize the product offer for our clients. And that's really also what we're going to be talking about today, as Abby introduced already. We're going to be looking at freedom of choice and how much freedom of choice you should offer to really get the most out of your customers, and also to give them something that adds value to them. Now, that's going to be differing between different markets, but just let's dive into it right away. So I think one of the major dilemmas nowadays when you're making a choice, when you're making a decision as a consumer or as a customer in any market, is the enormous amount of choice. If you see how that's developed over the past decades, when you go to a shopping mall nowadays, when you go to a supermarket, the amount of choice is just insane. And there have actually been quite some studies about how having too much to choose from can paralyze. You can cause this dilemma of not being sure what you want, not being sure what you want to choose out of the product offer that's available. And it's very important for companies nowadays to take into account. Basically, what you're going to have to do is find a very fine balancing act between offering a wide portfolio of products that allow you to offer unique and very well-fitting products to the needs of each consumer. On the other hand, if you offer too much, you can cause this kind of decision dilemma and this paralysis in choice. And of course, you're not the only one out there. At the same time, there's all your competitors who are also offering a lot of different products at the same time, confusing your customers even more and making it even more important to be differentiated yet clear in your product offer. So that's what we'll be talking about today, and we're going to do that based on a few examples. The main differentiation that we want to make today in our story is going to be between, on the left, very simple predefined packages, so you make it easy for your customer or easy for your consumer to choose, and on the right, a freedom of choice. This is also the terms that I'll be using throughout the webinar today. So let's have a look at what we mean with a simple predefined package. An example here, for instance, would be Dollar Shave Club. They have 3 different subscriptions that they offer, either a 2-blade, a 4-blade, or a 6-blade razor, and that's kind of it. That's the only choice that you have to make as a consumer, which makes it very easy, very simple to understand. It also means there's no customization. There's not a huge portfolio of products that you can choose from, with razors for sensitive skin, razors with batteries in it, razors with all kinds of swivel heads, etc. They keep it very, very simple and straightforward. So that's also what defines them as a brand. On the other hand, the other extreme, we have freedom of choice. Now, a good example of this would be Nike ID, where a consumer can just go online and really design their own sneaker. So starting out, you already have quite a few different designs you can choose from, but then on top of that, you can customize the look of your sneaker yourself. So you can customize the color of all of the elements on the sneaker. You can customize the color of the sole and, of course, the laces that you want to put in there. But you can even put in a name on the sneaker, or even different names on both sides on both shoes. So the opportunities to customize and make something that is unique to you are almost endless. Of course, that also comes with certain challenges for a manufacturer, for a company offering these products in manufacturing, in the distribution, etc. But at the same time, it gives you a product that is customized and unique for each consumer. So, an important balancing act there between what you want to offer to your consumers, whether that's predefined packages or freedom of choice. So let's look at a few other markets and examples. Starting off with the car industry. If you look back at the early days of the car industry, automotive industry, I think it was Henry Ford who said, a customer can have a car in any color that they want as long as it's black. That kind of defines the freedom of choice you had in those early days, and of course the picture you see right now is really very different. When you're choosing to buy a car, there's tons of models you can choose from, apart from the brands, of course. You can choose between the engine size, or you want gas or diesel, also the color of the car, the upholstery of the car, the color of the upholstery of the car, and all kinds of technical features on the inside as well as luxury editions, hubcaps, etc., etc. So again, for a manufacturer of a car, this also adds a lot of complexities in the manufacturing and distribution process because you have so many different possible combinations. It's great that you offer something that's customized to your customer, but at the same time, it makes it more complex. So what you see a lot of car manufacturers doing now is really trying to understand which elements they can bundle together to offer something that is simpler to the consumer, while at the same time also making it easier for them in their manufacturing and in their distribution processes. This is also something we do at Skim quite regularly, actually, using menu-based choice, a different form of conjoint research, where we test how effective and how attractive different bundles could be when designing packages for a car. So a lot of freedom of choice and more looking for what kind of predefined bundles within that freedom of choice would work for you and work for your customers. Let's have a look at a few more examples. The airline industry, a very interesting example. You see that, for instance, a lot of budget airlines are really offering a very basic product, bare minimum, and a lot of ways to add value to that on top of that with additional options that you can choose to pay for or not pay for. So allowing you to customize for yourself what you want. And you see that happening more and more now as well with some of the more premium airlines, so to say, in terms of the economy comfort options, for instance, that you can pay for the extra leg space, or the simply preferred seating, which is closer to the beginning, or early boarding, etc. So offering a lot more ways to customize your offer for a customer, and going beyond that very simple airline ticket, which is just the airline ticket. Moving on, another example, for instance, the insurance industry. What's interesting here is that for many insurance industries, for many countries, there's actually quite some government regulation, and the basic option, the most minimum option that you can offer, typically is quite extensive already. You need to have a certain minimum coverage, but that also makes it very easy. So you have a certain minimum coverage that doesn't differ between insurance companies, and it's a very simple predefined package. However, to differentiate, a lot of insurance companies are offering a lot of additional ways to customize your product on top of that with extra coverage that might not be applicable to everyone. Also interesting here is because insurance industries are quite a complex market, there's also more and more insurance companies coming out that try to simplify that process again, to try to offer a very simple set of predefined packages, also with consumers more and more being the one in control when they're choosing their insurances, and less of the insurances being bought through insurance brokers. So there's interesting trends here going on that can define whether you want to go for more freedom of choice in a market, or whether there's a trend for more simplicity and simpler predefined packages for your customers to choose from. We see a similar trend actually in banking and financial products. It's typically a very complex market, and there's a lot of things going on, and more we see pressure from consumers to simplify that, to be more transparent in your product offers, and often that also means simplifying the product offer, having fewer options to choose from, and more predefined packages. Again, it depends on what the starting position was in the market and what the pressure is that consumers are looking for, whether you see a trend for more simplification or for more freedom of choice and more complex choices. Another example, for instance, would be the utilities or energy industry. This really being a commodity, of course, you get an energy subscription to your house and you pay for that, and that's it. However, more and more now with smart homes and connected homes, you see that there's opportunities there as well for utility companies to differentiate themselves, to offer additional services on top of just power to your home, so to say. So again, you have something that's very basic and you want to offer more. You're starting to create freedom of choice, different options that may not be relevant for everyone, but allow you to customize your portfolio. So these are a few interesting examples, but let's look at our main example for today, and that's the telecom industry. So for the telecom industry, I want to share with you a more specific case study of how we can help at Skim to test different kinds of product offers and to help find out what would be the best product for you to offer as a company. Now, to do this, I want to take a case example of the fictional company Connected Telecoms. Connected Telecoms is a company that offers fixed telecom services. So that means subscriptions of internet, TV, and phone subscriptions. Usually these get bundled, of course, nowadays together into a single package deal that contains internet, TV, and phone at the same time. And that's the kind of offer we're talking about here in this example as well. Okay. Now, typically in the current market for connected telecoms, most of the telecom providers are offering these simple predefined packages. So the options are very simple. You have a small, a medium, and a large option. The small one offers a relatively limited phone subscription, so you need to pay for every minute that you call. It offers a very slow internet connection, and it also offers relatively few TV channels at the same time. So you could, for instance, pay around 30 euros for a product like this. If you want something a little bit more, you can go for a faster internet connection with, for instance, a phone subscription where you can call unlimited to your friends and family and more TV channels. You have to spend 45 euros. And then the large option, which is really unlimited calling to everyone. You have a very fast internet connection, like the latest glass fiber, and a lot of TV channels. And that would cost 60 euros. So that's kind of what would be normal in the market at the moment for the market for connected telecoms. Now there's a new idea in the organization to offer more freedom of choice, and a subscription here on the right. So in this example, what you see is that you can choose separately for your fixed line phone connection, whether you want the first option, which is the cheapest, or the final option for unlimited calling, which also costs more at 20 euros. You can also choose separately for your internet connection which one you would prefer, and again separately for the TV option, which TV option you would prefer. Of course, the option here on the right also introduces more complexity for the consumer. Something to always keep in mind is, does a customer really want that freedom, want that complexity, that need for them to choose exactly what it is they want, because some people might not really know what they want or what they need. And the option on the left makes it very easy to choose, of course, either small, medium, or large. If I go for medium, I'm probably okay. So what I'm really curious about actually is which option you would think is more attractive when you're looking for a new fixed telecom subscription. I think we're going to be able to put a little poll on screen here and see what your preferences are. So would you like the simple predefined packages? So you just have 3 options, that's all you have to choose between. Or would you like the freedom of choice so you can customize the product for yourself? Also, you'll probably have to think about it a little bit more, what exactly you want. I'm going to give you a minute to fill that in. Okay, I see the results are in actually, and there's an overwhelming preference for the freedom to choose and customize the package for yourself at the moment. Later on, we'll compare this also to the figures we got in the case study example. But it's interesting to see. So right now, a lot of people here in the webinar, you want to customize it for yourself. You want to choose for yourself exactly what kind of product you would like. Let me just make sure. There you go. Let's go back to our case study example of connected telecoms. Because within connected telecoms, actually, there's a kind of a debate going on which offer they should offer. And it's about more than just a preference of customers. I mean, I just asked you, which one would you prefer? And an overwhelming majority said you would prefer the freedom of choice. However, it's about more than just the preference of the customers. It's also about the impact on the sales and the revenues of connected telecoms. Now, within the company, there's 2 groups, Group A and Group B. Group A is afraid that if you offer that complete freedom of choice, actually the revenues for connected telecoms are going to go down. Now, why would they be afraid of that? Let me explain that to you in a minute over here. Basically, when you offer these predefined packages on the left, Group A at Connected Telecoms is arguing that if you want a very fast internet connection, you're also forced to get that most expensive phone option and that most expensive TV option. So you're kind of being forced into paying for things that you might not necessarily need. And this is the way that it's currently being done in the market. So this group of people at Connected Telecoms are actually very afraid that once you start to introduce something like freedom of choice, customers are going to be able to optimize their offer for themselves and choose far more limited options and spend less at the end because they're not being forced to pay for things that they don't need anymore. So Connected Telecoms, of course, comes to us to find out how we would be able to tackle this in a research. So what we've done is we've done a two-step research process. First step in this process is to do a very simple concept testing. First off, understanding a little bit about the preference of consumers, like I just did with you as well, but also to understand what the impact would be on the monthly spending across those different offers. The fear is that when you offer freedom of choice, people might spend less because they can optimize. So that's something we needed to test in this case. However, there's more to the story than that, because we also want to know what offering more freedom of choice would do in a competitive context. For this, we've used the conjoint methodology that we actually use very often. In this approach, we make sure that in a competitive context, where, for instance, Connected Telecoms is available and all of their competitors are available, to measure the impact of offering that freedom of choice or offering simple predefined packages. We can do that in combination with all kinds of other elements and attributes, such as the price of the subscription, such as additional features and additional services, but for now, we'll keep it very simple in this example, and just see whether it actually moves the needle. Are you able to convince consumers to choose for you instead of for competition when you're offering that freedom of choice versus the simple predefined packages? So let me take you through the process step by step. First, a simple concept testing. Of course, we can show these different subscriptions to consumers, to respondents, and ask them which one they would prefer. And very likely they're going to say that they prefer freedom of choice, like you did just now yourself as well. But that's not the whole story. The next step, of course, is to understand how freedom of choice or predefined packages impact the monthly spending. So what we do next, we ask all of our respondents which option they would choose within each of these portfolios. So for instance, here I am a respondent who really likes to have sufficient internet speed. I really don't like slow internet speeds. Apart from that, though, phone, TV, both of these are not so important to me. So if I see the predefined packages, I really don't want that basic package with the slow internet. I'm going to go for the minimum option. I'm going to be spending 45 euros a month. Now, what happens when I see that freedom of choice option? I don't really care that much about the phone subscription, so I'm going to choose the cheapest option there. For internet, like I said, I don't want the cheapest internet. I want something that's decent. I also don't need the best of the best. And for TV, again, I don't care so much about it, so I'm going to go for the cheapest option. Now, this would result in a total monthly spending of 35 euros, so it's much lower than for the situation on the left with predefined packages. Now, by showing this to a lot of different respondents and asking each of them what they would prefer, we can find out on average what the impact would be on average spending for consumers putting this into the market. Now, our next step, based on conjoint approach, we see here a competitive environment where we have different brands that are available, different providers, and each of them offers a different subscription. So here in this example, provider A, let's say that that's Connected Telecom, offers both a predefined package and the freedom of choice option, and provider B and C, competition, they offer, one of them offers a freedom of choice as well, and the other offers a predefined package. In this case, let's say that I really like provider A and I have a preference for freedom of choice, and this is going to be the choice that I make in a competitive context. But what we really want to know is whether it moves the needle, whether having this kind of offer would persuade me to choose you over another provider. So let's randomize everything. This is typically what we do in conjoint research. Now, provider C is the one that offers both the predefined package and the freedom of choice. And providers A and B both provide only the very simple predefined packages that are more common in the market. Suppose that I'm a customer who really likes provider A. I might choose for this option with simple predefined packages. I preferred freedom of choice, but at the end of the day, it's just not attractive enough to persuade me to switch to provider C because I like provider A. And this is actually the core thing that we want to measure in a conjoint like this. Is offering something different going to be enough and attractive enough to make people switch from one provider to the other? Okay, let's have a look at the results here. And like we just did in our poll here, in the case study example, we see that the majority of consumers would prefer the freedom of choice. In this case, that freedom of choice doesn't overcomplicate it too much. People are able to choose for each of these services what it is they like and what it is they're willing to pay for. And the predefined packages don't give you that freedom, and they're even though they're a little bit simpler to choose. When we look at average spending for this study, we actually saw that the differences here weren't as big as the group A at Connected Telecom feared. Actually, what we saw happening is that with the simple predefined packages on the left, a lot of people were gravitating towards that middle option, just having an average spending on the phone and the internet and the TV, just kind of sticking in the middle. Whereas on the option on the right with freedom of choice, if I have a preference for a lot of TV channels, it's very easy for me to choose the most expensive option because I really like it. So we saw people optimizing for themselves going down, choosing the cheaper options, but we also saw them being more willing to choose the most premium option. And actually that's going to make them happier at the end of the day, right? Because they can really optimize and customize the product to fit their needs and their wants. Now, let's have a look at sales potential. So, was offering such freedom of choice, we know it was preferred, but was it really enough to convince people to switch from one provider to the next? So, suppose that Connected Telecom would just offer its old predefined packages. We have an estimate of the sales based on our conjoint model. By introducing the new freedom of choice model instead, in our modeling, we saw that we could triple the sales of Connected Telecoms. So this is a massive increase, of course, and keeping in mind that the spending was only a little bit lower with the freedom of choice, we also saw that there was a huge potential for revenue increase when offering that new freedom of choice subscription. So overall, a very positive business case, but it was very important to validate that. It's very easy to say that people prefer one option over the other, but you need to make sure whether it actually has that power to move the needle, and we also really wanted to make sure whether that spending wasn't going to be a lot lower in the freedom of choice model. So, summing up, was freedom of choice preferred in this case with Connected Telecoms? Yes, of course, it was really preferred by our customers. Did it lead to higher spending? We were already afraid that it was going to lead to lower spending, but the effect wasn't as large as we'd expected. Does the offering freedom of choice lead to higher shares? In this case example, it did. And at the end of the day, taking all of that together, it would also lead to higher revenues for Connected Telecom. Now, this, of course, is only one example in the telecom market. And like I introduced at the beginning of the webinar, depending on where you are in your industry, depending on whether currently there's a very complex offering where you can customize a lot, but maybe it's a product that you don't care about so much, maybe it's a product that you don't understand very well, there might be a lot of potential in trying to simplify the product offering to make it easier for people to make their choices. On the other hand, if you're in a market and an industry where currently the product offer is very simple and not really very differentiating, it would probably add value to create more freedom of choice and let people customize the product to exactly what they want. Often what you'll see in very high commitment categories, there's probably more potential in allowing people to customize. So for instance, going back to the Nike ID example, a sneaker really says something about yourself. There's going to be a lot of people out there who want to customize it and really make it their own, and there's going to be a lot of value to that. But it really differs from one industry to the next. If you're curious to know how we would test these differences between simple predefined packages or offering more freedom of choice in your industry, of course, feel free to let us know. We're happy to look at it together with you and see how we can customize a sort of research approach to cover that and understand whether it makes more sense to offer more freedom of choice or makes more sense to simplify your product